Welcome to Christian Warrior Training. My name is Keith. We're going to go over the weekly newscast of all the crime that occurred at churches over the past week. We always start off with terrorism. There is a sentencing for a man associated to ISIS that was plotting to bomb churches throughout the Southwest. We're going to talk about that. We'll talk about some really deep, dark, disturbing things that are happening in the Congo and in Nigeria, where Christians are being slaughtered while they're worshiping in church and at a hospital. We'll talk about violent crime that's happened at churches in America, like a stabbing that occurred in a church, another church worker that was assaulted while they were working. There is a lot to break down, including an arson of a church. I will always throw in tips and tricks that you can do to avoid these types of incidents at your church to make sure that you're safe. Before we get started, I released some new merch this week. One of them is the Christian Warrior logo in camouflage. It is in M81, which if the Lord was going to wear camouflage, it would be the woodland pattern. And so you can pick that up over at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. Hit the merch tab. I got a whole bunch of new stuff, including Jesus Saves shirts and some other stuff that you might like to help spread the gospel and teach people about how to keep your people safe. All right. Let's go ahead and get started. First things first, this is what our newsletter looks like. It is just chock full of all the crimes happening throughout the week. You can head over to ChristianWarriorTraining.com and get that delivered into your inbox every week. Not just this, but tips, training, and it's all free. If you want to support me in my mission of keeping churches safe, then please, a paid subscription helps me deliver this free training to others that can't afford it. Now, there was an Iraqi national residing in the United States that was sentenced to 6 years in prison after he was found guilty of plotting to bomb Christian churches in 3 different states here in the United States. He had stockpiled explosive materials. He did have some slight affiliations with ISIS. And I think it's important to note, we've talked about it before, ISIS and Al-Qaeda have told their followers multiple times to attack Christian churches in the United States, in Europe, and abroad. Federal government, our federal government has determined that Christians, their churches, Jews, and their synagogues are all targets of ISIS, and that we should be preparing for that. And somehow churches are forgetting about that. I wrote an article this week. I want to show it to you real quick. Get over to ChristianWarriorTraining.com. And I did this article right here on why church leaders reject your ideas, even if you're right. And I talked about how they're ignoring you because they don't see you for who you really are. And as an example, people probably look and go, oh, Keith Graves, your church has probably got the best security program around. And I think we do have a great security program. But there are still things that 4 years later, I'm still trying to get implemented in my church. And it's not that they're ignoring me, it's that they have other priorities. Another factor in all this too is they're used to me, right? Back at my police department, I was going all over the world to teach police tactics and counter-narcotic training to people from New Zealand to Ireland and everywhere in the United States. And I could not get a form, that's it, passed and approved in my own police department. And one of the things that I was told was, well, we know who the real you is. But they didn't know who the real me was. And it reminded me of Jesus when he went back to his own city and he tried to preach the gospel and tried to show that he was the Messiah, and they could not accept him for who he was. They only looked at him as the carpenter's son. I think you should go over and read that article. I definitely write better than I speak. And you can take a look at that and see why your church is ignoring you. I bring that up because your church needs to have a church security team. And I know there are churches that choose not to. They either say, well, we're in the middle of Kansas, in the middle of nowhere, or in the middle of Idaho, in the middle of nowhere. Nothing ever happens here. Oh, my best all-time favorite one is we have concealed carriers in the congregation, so we really don't need it. But the worst mass shooting at a church in the United States, in Texas, their plan was we had concealed carriers in the congregation. Well, that plan did not materialize because they all died. 20 people died in that mass shooting. That is not a plan. That's hope, and hope isn't a plan. So look, this bombing issue right here, it tells us that we need to be preparing, and you need to have been preparing last year, not today. All right, next up, we got a terrorist attack in the Congo. Approximately 20 civilians were killed during a terrorist attack late Friday night on a Catholic health center operated by the Sisters of the Presentation in the village Aombi, located in the Diocese of Butembo in North Kivu, Democratic Republic of Congo. Now, militants from the Allied Democratic Forces, or ADF, are aligned with ISIS, stormed the facility around 10 p.m., brutally killing patients, including women in a maternity ward, before setting the hospital and surrounding homes ablaze. Now, reports indicate that 15 victims were killed inside the hospital, with at least 5 more murdered in nearby areas. In addition to the destruction, vital medical supplies were looted. Although the military responded, the attackers escaped into nearby forests. All right, so every Christian in America needs to be talking about this genocide. Now, I'm going to continue printing these stories every week, and I'd appreciate it if you would forward these stories to every Christian friend that you know. Don't let these stories die. We need to know everything we can to support our brothers and sisters in Africa. We need to be doing absolutely everything we can to support them. All right, next up, we're going to go back to Minnesota, where we had a mass shooting at Annunciation Church. They're tying it to a form of violent extremism, and I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago. Now, that mass shooting at Annunciation Church in Minneapolis that occurred in August is now being examined as a potential case of nihilist violent extremism, or NVE, which is a newly identified trend in extremist violence. Now, the FBI is currently investigating approximately 250 similar cases nationwide with NVE attacks characterized by a lack of political or religious motivation and a drive to inflict chaos for its own sake. According to the National Counterterrorism, Innovation, Technology, and Education Center, the suspect in the Annunciation Church attack fits the NVE profile. Basically, what an NVE is they want everybody in the world to die. That's kind of a very simplistic way of looking at it, but that's it. They just want violence everywhere. Now, I outlined this threat in a prior article a few weeks ago. I outlined it in this bulletin right here, the Threat Intelligence Brief, the community, which is a decentralized network. And I outlined everything about this group. Well, don't forget to go to my class December 6th in Texas, Fort Worth area. There's only 300 seats left. We got 700 sold already. It's a free class. But look, we talked about everything about this group. We talked about all the indicators and recommended actions that churches should take. Head on over to ChristianWarriorTraining.com. Take a look at this newsletter. It'll be the first thing you see there. Pull that up and I'll have a link to that threat intelligence brief that you can look at and learn about this new threat and protect yourself. To be honest, the people that are involved in this are going to be your kids in your children's ministry. They're going to be swayed into this nihilistic behavior through video games, video chats, people getting recruited in video games. So the more you can learn about that, the better off you're going to be. All right, we're going to move on to violent crimes that happened this week in churches. Now, 2 men were stabbed during a violent altercation that occurred outside Hillcrest Baptist Church on Hillcrest Drive in Raleigh, North Carolina. The incident took place around 9:23 p.m. on Friday and prompted a police response to the nearby Exxon gas station on New Bern Avenue, where one of the victims had fled. A second victim was discovered across the street at a Wendy's restaurant. Both men sustained stab wounds and were transported to a local hospital for treatment. Now, this incident occurred approximately an hour before a separate stabbing involving a woman at a nearby motel. Now, a clear majority of violent crime at churches occurs after hours, like this one happening at 9:23 p.m. And a clear majority of them, 71%, occur in the parking lot. Now, proper lighting in your parking lot and on the exterior of your church, a 4K video system, a burglar alarm, and a fire alarm are an absolute must. It is the basic form of security that you can give any church. I think this should come first among all things, including your active shooter training, because it's going to be the one that's going to keep your church safe the most. All right, next up, an intoxicated driver hits an officer in a church parking lot. This happened in Appleton, Wisconsin. Now, according to the criminal complaint, police were responding to a disturbance when the suspect, driving a PT Cruiser, allegedly attempted to hit individuals in the lot by speeding through it, despite having a clear exit route. Officers attempted to intervene, and one was struck, sustaining injuries to his ankles, feet, and legs. Now, the driver fled the scene, leading police on a high-speed chase before being apprehended. Now, a breath test revealed a BAC, a blood alcohol concentration of 0.218, which is 3 times the legal limit. Now, just looking at her picture real quick, I think it might be a combo of drugs and alcohol, but it is what it is. Hopefully you had a DRE look at them. All right, so the woman is now facing 7 criminal charges, including recklessly endangering safety, causing injury while under the influence. Now, look, I just want to take a moment and ask you all to pray for the officer and the offender. many of these stories don't explain the lifelong injuries that officers get from incidents like this. Now, my career was ended by an incident that didn't even make the newspaper. And I deal with that injury every single day. These officers, they're putting their lives at risk for us, and we need to keep them in our prayers. And on a side note, we would think that the officer is going to get taken care of, but many times they're not. I have one friend that was shot and he was fired because he didn't show up for work a month later because he was still recuperating. So this happens quite frequently. If you knew some of the things that happen to these cops where they're not getting taken care of, it would absolutely make you sick. So let's lift them up in prayer. Just pray for the Lord, the great physician, to heal him and bring him back to work so he can keep protecting us. All right, next up, we got a volunteer that was assaulted at an Ohio church-run free store. Now, a volunteer at Threads, which is a free store operated by Grace Presbyterian Church in Martins Ferry, Ohio, was violently assaulted on the morning of November 14th. Authorities report that a man was initially escorted out after causing a disturbance, but returned shortly after 10 a.m. and then attacked the volunteer, striking him 10 to 15 times in the face and body. Emergency responders treated the victim at the scene. Police quickly apprehended the suspect nearby, and he has been charged with assault, criminal trespass, and menacing. Officers also noted the suspect has a history of assault-related offenses in another community. Now, for those churches that run facilities that cater to the homeless, you have a greater chance of being assaulted. I want you to take my course on identifying threats so that you can see the warning cues of an assault before you're hurt. Next up, we got a win for churches with a 4K video system. Now, there was a fatal stabbing in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It was captured on surveillance footage from a church on Webster Avenue. Now, the incident occurred on the evening of November 13th when a violent altercation between two roommates escalated on the porch of their residence on Webster Avenue across from the church. The suspect allegedly stabbed the 52-year-old victim over 15 times during the confrontation, and that was seen on the church's camera. Emergency responders pronounced the victim dead at the scene. The alleged assailant was arrested with visible blood on his body. He's been charged with felony, criminal, homicide. Again, it's a reminder that churches need to have a 4K video system. Except we got a teen that was charged in Michigan City with double homicide right after he did a church burglary. This happened in Michigan City, Indiana. A 15-year-old who was 14 at the time of the alleged crimes now faces an additional charge of burglary involving Southwind Emmanuel Church. On the same day, two people were found stabbed to death in a nearby home. Police discovered the victims, a 67-year-old man and a 66-year-old woman, during a welfare check on October 19th, which was prompted by a vehicle crash several miles from the residence involving the teen. The juvenile has been charged with 2 counts of felony murder, and a recent hearing aimed at waiving him to adult court was continued pending 2 mental health evaluations. Now, I did an online course for you guys about responding to church alarms. I just want to point out that if you got an alarm at your church and you responded, you don't know who's inside. And you don't know what that person did before they broke into your church. This is a good example of why you need to take that class on responding to an alarm at your church. If you go in there and just bebop around, just looking around, and you encounter somebody inside, for all you know, they could have just killed 2 people. Here, I can guarantee that kid would have killed you if you didn't have your A game on. So go look at that video, go watch how to respond to an alarm at your church. And I know a lot of you are saying like, that's none of our business. The police are going to handle that. Look, man, nobody's coming to save you. You better learn how to do this stuff so if the police don't show up, you can actually handle it yourself. There are a lot of churches that follow this program where they know the police are not going to come if there's an alarm because they will tell them we're not coming. And if that's not your community, the question you should be asking yourself is, when is that going to become my community? All right, we're moving on to sex crimes. This is the depressing part. We got a pastor at a Compton church charged with child molestation. This is a 68-year-old pastor from Templo Pentecostal El Camino Church in Compton, California. He's been charged with 2 counts of lewd acts upon a child. That's according to the LA County Sheriff's Department, which handles calls for Compton. The alleged abuse took place on October 7th while the individual was actively serving as pastor at the church. His bail is set at $200,000. Due to the nature of the crimes, investigators believe there are going to be additional victims. Whenever you have one victim, you probably have 10. Now, the one good thing about California, I hate California, and they let criminals go left and right. But the one thing they do right is prosecute pedophiles. Here, this guy, he's going to do some serious time for sure, even for California. So what's important here is that you need to have a policy to protect our children. So a cornerstone of that policy states that no adult, even the pastor, can be with a child unless there is another adult present. So if you need policy, I suggest that you go to Kiernan Consulting. He is putting out some really good policy right now for churches, and he also consults for church insurance companies. So I have a link to Kiernan Consulting and all of his policies if you go to the newsletter at ChristianWarriorTraining.com. Now, there was a man that was arrested for alleged sexual assault of minor at a Mississippi church. Now, this 38-year-old man was arrested after allegedly following a girl believed to be between 11 and 14 years old into a bathroom at a church in South Laurel. Now, the incident occurred on Sunday, prompting a call to Laurel PD. Authorities say the suspect made inappropriate advances toward the juvenile in what is being investigated as a fondling type assault. Witnesses at the church observed the man trailing the girl and provided statements to law enforcement. The suspect remained at the scene and was taken into custody without incident. Now, look, many times we're so focused on sex crimes being committed by staff that we overlook random people taking advantage of our children in common areas. Now, church security ministries need to keep an eye out for our children as they walk through our building unaccompanied, because sometimes you will have a parent that will tell their kids during a service, yeah, go to the bathroom. Just keep an eye on that kid as they move through, right? Watch who goes into the bathroom behind them. And if you need to monitor that, then go monitor it. If you're a male and it's a female that goes in the female bathroom and you're suspicious of something, just grab a female nearby and say, go check on that little girl inside. Vice versa, if you're a female watching the church and the same thing happens to a male, just ask for a male to go in really quick and check on them. It's not that big of a deal. Next up, we're going to head over to Albuquerque. A former volunteer affiliated with the youth ministry at Restoration Church in Albuquerque, New Mexico, was arrested by New Mexico State Police on Thursday night near San Pedro Drive and San Antonio Drive. The arrest followed a report from a 15-year-old alleged multiple incidents of inappropriate behavior between December of 2023 and March of 2024. Now, while the arrest warrant referred to the individual as a youth pastor, church officials clarified he was not an employee, but served only in a volunteer capacity. Well, that makes it better. He's just a volunteer. He's not an employee. That is such a horrible statement from the church. All right, sorry, I digress. The church stated he was removed from the role after parental complaints and has not been associated with the church for approximately a year, which would be the year that he got kicked out of there because he was molesting a kid. Look, man, this church totally, completely failed by just sitting there distancing themselves. If you're a volunteer, you are an employee of the church. I hope you guys understand that. A volunteer doesn't mean you're not associated with the church, right? You own that volunteer. This pisses me off to see a statement like this come from a church. All right, look, to be clear, everybody needs a background check. Everybody, including your volunteers, and most importantly, your pastor. And it needs to be an in-depth background check. And then people need to be monitored. This is an example of how not to respond to something like that in your church. All right, enough of that. I hate churches that are stupid. Next up, the Archbishop of the Anglican Church in North America is suspended amid misconduct allegations. Now, the Anglican Church of North America is headquartered across the U.S. and Canada, has suspended its top leader, Archbishop Stephen Wood, amid multiple allegations of misconduct. Now, the suspension was effective as of Sunday and was announced by the newly appointed acting leader following the resignation of the previous dean. Allegations against Wood, currently Bishop of the Diocese of the Carolinas, include sexual misconduct prior to his elevation to Archbishop, as well as bullying staff and plagiarizing sermons. A formal presentment has been filed, and a board of inquiry has been impaneled to decide if an ecclesiastical trial is warranted. Next up, we're going to go to Arsons. On November 19th, fire crews responded to a structure fire at Mount Calvary Missionary Baptist Church on Bloomington Road in Champaign, Illinois. The incident began just after 12:28 p.m. when multiple reports of smoke prompted an emergency response from both the Champaign and Urbana fire departments. Upon arrival, firefighters observed smoke coming from the roof and sanctuary windows, leading them to escalate the situation to a second alarm and deploy multiple hose lines. The blaze was eventually brought under control. No injuries were reported. This is your weekly reminder that you need a fire alarm, a burglar alarm, and a 4K video system. Right, next up, I want to go to Reddick, Florida, after a man was caught allegedly stealing a vehicle from the parking lot of the Fairfield Baptist Church. Now, according to the Marion County Sheriff's Office, the suspect took the vehicle on Monday, claiming he needed transportation to get home. The vehicle's owner had a tracker installed in it, which led deputies to locate the stolen car at Wawa on Southwest 484. The man now faces felony charges of burglary and grand theft auto. Now, thieves target churches because they know when you go inside, you're done for an hour. I know this was on a weekday, but they know when you're going in for a Bible study or whatever, that you're going to be there forever. And they're going to pick on you because of your forgiving nature. You're more likely to not want to press charges because you are a Christian. So you are easy pickings. Now let's go back to that tracker for a minute. I use Apple AirTags for my cars. If you buy an Apple AirTag, it's a one flat fee. There are videos on how you can take the speaker out of it so people can get alerted that there's a tracker near you, and you can press a button to make it go off. So the thief would be able to press a button on their iPhone, go look for your tracker because alarm's going off on that tracker, and then throw it away and you're good. But if you're smart, there's a way to open it up and take the speaker out so nobody can activate an alarm. I would do that. I hide them in my car. And whenever it's nearby, Bluetooth, other iPhones, it picks up the location. It's a really cheap way of tracking your material. That's my 2 cents. Next up, armed assailants attacked the residence of a parish priest in Kaduna State, Nigeria on Monday, abducting Father Bobo Pashao of St. Stephen Parish, along with several others, and killing the brother of another priest, Father Anthony Yarrow. The incident occurred in the Kagarko local government area and has drawn widespread concern from the Archdiocese of Kaduna and the Catholic charity Aid to the Church in Need. Now, this attack is part of a broader pattern of targeted violence against Christian communities in Nigeria, where kidnappings for ransom, extremist attacks, and sectarian violence continue to rise. Now, look, in 2025, so far, 3,100 Christians have been killed in Nigeria alone, with thousands more abducted, which means we know that thousands more have probably died. We do need to keep these stories in the news. Now, there was another one in Nigeria on the 18th, killing at least 2 people and kidnapping the pastor and multiple worshipers during the service. Police confirmed one victim was shot inside the church and another was found nearby, while witnesses reported up to 3 fatalities. The assailants interrupted the service with gunfire, forcing congregants to flee, and then took hostages into the surrounding bush. Now, if you want to see the video from this incident, I put it up on my X account, x.com. Go look up Christian50. You'll see the video from that. They were live streaming when that occurred. Next up, during a congressional hearing on November 20th, experts and lawmakers warned that China's intensified crackdown on religious freedom, including the arrest of 18 leaders from the Zion Church, possess a national security threat to the United States. The Chinese Communist Party's actions are seen as an effort to eliminate religious faith and suppress dissent, have reportedly expanded beyond its borders, targeting Chinese Christians abroad and pressuring churches in the U.S. and Canada. The Zion Church, with 5,000 members across 50 cities, has been a primary target due to its refusal to operate under government control. And it should be noted that the Chinese government actually rewrote our Bible to something totally different. And that is the only authorized Bible in their country. And it is not the gospel. It is some other horrible thing. So while we enjoy our freedom of religion here in the United States, our brothers and sisters across the world are having their rights suppressed. They're being imprisoned. And in the case of Africa, they're being slaughtered in a mass genocide of Christians. Now, look, we need to pray for all of our persecuted brothers and sisters, pray for those that are imprisoned, and I implore all of you to do as much as you can to support those people. And after you get done praying for all of them, I want you to remember your ABCs. Always be caring,